Pregame.com.
Welcome back, pregame.tv. Ken Thomson, his sidekick Dave Cokin, Brian Leonard, of course, he's in that Friday football showdown for $50K, so
it's too good to hang around with him.
Yeah, we're not going to see him, and if he wins the thing, we'll never see him.
Well, no, I'm going to follow him around if he wins it, because he's going to be buying lunch. Now, Brian's doing really well in the $50,000 Golden Nugget Las Vegas Review-Journal Friday football showdown. He's been in the finals twice before, so he's a really good contest player, and now he's in the finals once again. Had another strong week last week, and he's one win away in terms of beating someone out from winning the big money. So.
That's right. The other semifinal is actually Friday, and so he'll go at it next week, I guess.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Actually, no. The way we're running the contest this year, and this is on my show that I do with Matt Humans on ESPN Radio here in town, we're not doing the finals till December 19th because we want to make sure all the bowl games are on the board. So, in effect, the final week of the contest is going to stretch all the way through the bowl games, because if somebody wants to take the one of the playoff games, that's fine, and because that's the fair way to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's really good. Brian's done a great job in the contest. I'm not eligible to participate, of course, because I'm one of the hosts. But
that's not good.
Yeah, it's too bad. I'd have won the thing for sure.
Hands down.
Yeah.
We would have just given you the money.
Now listen, Brian's he's knocked out a huge year on these plays, absolutely huge year. So, I'll throw in a pick with my buddy Brian, a plug with my buddy Brian. Those picks, a lot of them are going to be sold on pregame. You can get them pretty cheap. Okay.
There you go. That's right. We may actually leak one of them out here on our free play videos without telling Brian.
Sounds all right to me.
All right, Cooks. We got, of course, championship week. A lot of championship conference games coming up. And Friday night, Pac-12, early start. I mean, 6 o'clock kickoff, Levi Stadium, Arizona, Oregon. We knew Oregon was going to be there. Are you surprised UCLA didn't get it done?
This, by the way, Levi Stadium, this or a brand similar to this, bottled water, $6.75 for a bottle of water.
Nice.
The wrong business.
No.
Okay? This is a fascinating matchup to me. And the reason it is because of the speed issue. Oregon, part of the reason Oregon, obviously they're very well coached and they've got some great players. Mm-hmm. But the big deal for Oregon is they outspeed everybody. They're really fast. One team they haven't been able to outspeed the last 2 years, Arizona. I saw Arizona play at the beginning of this year. We saw the game against UNLV, and it's like, holy Jesus. I mean, these guys are it's like world-class sprinters out there. And obviously UNLV wasn't going to keep up with their speed, but a lot of other teams haven't either. And it saw it in spades a couple of weeks ago when they played at Utah. Utah's a well-coached, solid, fundamental football team. Got absolutely run over by the team speed factor with Arizona. And that's why Arizona's given Oregon fits the last 2 years. And they're not going to be afraid of them here. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to win the game, because I'm sure Oregon is going to game plan for this and try and make some adjustments. But it's why this game has been so tough for Oregon the last couple of years.
One thing Oregon has done this year, Dave, as opposed to the last couple of years when they've been near the top of the perch, looking like they were going to be a team BCS-wise to get to that big game, they've taken out Stanford handily, and they've taken out Oregon State handily. That Civil War usually gives them trouble.
Well, yeah, and I think it was maybe a case of taking Oregon State a little lightly last year. Not this time around, because they remembered what happened last year. Right. And Stanford is just one of the more disappointing teams in college football this year. Dave, a lot of bloom has come off the David Shaw rose, hasn't it? Mm-hmm. It started in the Michigan State bowl game last year when he was way too conservative with his game calling and probably cost him the game in the process. And this team doesn't have, they didn't seem to have the chemistry that the past couple of Stanford teams had. So maybe it was just a mix. But, Oregon just pretty much took them both out.
Yeah, they didn't have that go-to running back guy. They had Ty Montgomery, but he was pretty much the whole offense. And,
you got to open things up a little bit, too. I don't think you can beat Oregon by keeping things that conservative, because I understand the idea is to try and play a low-scoring game with them, but you're not going to get in a 3-3 game. It's just not going to happen.
All right, now one thing for Oregon throughout the season, the offensive line's been banged up. They lost John Stone early. In the first meeting, they didn't have Fisher. He's back for this game, but it looks like they probably won't have Grasu, one of the better centers in the country.
And that's huge, because, the center is probably the most overlooked guy in the offense.
Right.
But the whole timing mechanism can get messed up when one center is replaced by another one. But the thing is, they're so used to going through patchwork lineups offensively on the line this year. I don't know that it impacts them this much at this point.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, this will be my free play. The line on this game, Oregon, minus 14.5 at Levi Stadium, total of 73.5. And going to go ahead, make it official. And I'm going to take a look at the dog here, Arizona, not because they've won the last 2 games, but just because, like Dave said, speed-wise, they match up. I'm not saying Oregon doesn't win the game. I really do think the Ducks will win the game, but I think Arizona can keep it close. Scooby Wright is just one of the most phenomenal stories in college sports. A 2-star recruit. I mean, ridiculous amount of tackles, 139 tackles, 83 of them solo tackles, 14 sacks on his own. This kid's just a game changer on the defensive side of the ball. In fact, in the first meeting, he had that key fumble recovery against Mariota at the end of the game, and that spelled the end for the Oregon Ducks. But the Ducks, they had that unsportsmanlike conduct penalty on Washington. That kind of gave Arizona another chance to get in the end zone, which they did, and they held on for the 31-24 victory in the opening meeting. So they've beaten them the last 2 times. One of the things you want to watch as well, third down efficiency. Oregon just 38% in the last 2 meetings against Arizona, where the Wildcats 61%. If they can hit close to that number, they'll be in this game. Rich Rod, Coach of the Year in the Pac-12, Scooby Wright, Defensive Player, and of course Mariota, Offensive Player in the Pac-12. Mariota, there's no doubt to me that he's going to be the Heisman Trophy winner, especially if Oregon wins the game. I think they do win the game. I just think that Arizona stays inside the number. Marshall solid. You've got Freeman, pretty solid freshman running back. And then, Tyner should be able to go in this one. Oregon's receivers, they're good. They're not great, but they're good enough. And Mariota, he is great. He makes plays. And Dave Cokin, when you have a guy like that can just make plays, it should give Oregon the edge to get the W. But again, Arizona, they're not going to be intimidated. And Rich Rodriguez, to me, doing an incredible job. And you and I talked about it earlier on your show. It's crazy how Brady Hoke gets fired and Rich Rod gets named Pac-12 Coach of the Year on the same day. From
Oregon's perspective here, they don't care. They're at the point now where it doesn't matter if they win by 1 or 101. They just want to win the football game. They win the football game, they're in the Final Four. They're in the playoffs. So bear that in mind with big favorites on this championship Saturday. Style points don't mean a whole lot in these title games. Not for teams like Alabama, not for a team like Oregon. If they win, they're in. It's that simple. And that would make me reluctant to lay a lot of points because teams that are in that situation have a tendency to get a little more conservative. They just want to make sure they win the game.
There you go. All right, well, we're going to look at another video. It'll be Dave's free play coming up. It'll be another championship game, this time inside the ACC with Florida State. All the extracurricular activity outside the field with Jameis Winston still going on there over on campus. We'll talk about that matchup as they are a 4.5 point favorite against Georgia Tech. We'll do that when we come back. Wrap things up. Pregame.tv.